In a world often riddled with division, that feeling of more stands as a beacon of unity and understanding, honoring the rich tapestry of human experience. Embark on this transformative adventure with Alana as she reveals the hidden depths of our collective spirit and awakens the limitless potential residing within each one of us. Join Alana as she journeys alongside others who have embraced voice within. Get ready to be moved, uplifted, and forever altered as you uncover the essence of the soul's journey, guided by the insightful and compassionate Alana Green.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, and welcome back to the That Feeling of More podcast. And I'm so excited and I'm thrilled, really, to have this conversation with Jeannine. And Jeannine is a mystic who has all kinds of things up her sleeve to be able to help people and shift people. But we're here to hear her story, and I'm so excited to hear some of the pieces that we had a little bit of a previous chat, and I'm just excited to divulge this. So, Jeannine, welcome.
Thank you, Alana. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, let's just start with a bit of your story. Tell us a little bit about you and what brought you to being a mystic and what you're doing today.
Sure. Well, I've always been a little different. So if we really want to go back in time, this stems back to when I was a young girl, and my mom and I were on our way to a little we were preparing for an event. So we had to get pictures for the newspaper, and so we're on our way there, and we're driving. And I remember, this is 1960 something, it's maybe 1970. And I was like, "Oh, Mom, this is what this house looked like. I had a dream about this house last night," and I was explaining the whole thing to her, and she's trying to find her way, maps and notes and everything. And all of a sudden we pull up, and she just freezes, because everything that I just described for this house was right there. It was right there. And so I was very excited. I'm like, "Oh, that's the house." And she didn't respond because, that's kind of spooky, right? Like, in her defense, like, what? She just described the whole house to me. But, of course, that started my road of kind of internalizing it. The messaging there that I interpreted was, that was scary. Mom didn't like it. Not her fault, just, it was different. But it continued that way. And It was always that way. And so, fasting forward to my 20s, and actually earlier than that, I had moved out quite young. My childhood was a little tricky. So I moved out very young, and I was just in survival mode, getting all the jobs that I needed to get, and just to feed myself, like most people do. And yet on the inside, I was still really drawn to yoga, mystical things. Shirley MacLaine had her books out, which I loved, all about past lives and things like this, which in my Catholic upbringing on the south side of Chicago, we never really, that wasn't part of what we learned, right? And so in the financial industry, it was also pretty harsh. It was pretty heavy. And I was there for about 10 or 12 years, but secretly I'm reading how to eat healthy. I became a vegetarian, doing yoga, Shirley MacLaine, Dr. Andrew Weil, Gary Zukov, and it was just blossoming. The truer parts of me were just really, really, really almost to the point where I couldn't contain it anymore. So come late 90s, I had an opportunity to move to California with my ex-husband, and we went, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could get fast food vegetarian. These people are my tribe. And I continued to work a little bit as an IPO trader. I was Series 7, Series 63 licensed, but I was going to school at night to become a massage therapist, became Reiki trained, and that was it. I ended up leaving and never looked back. Wow.
And how hard was that decision to kind of step into whatever this is that was showing up for you?
It was really hard. It was coming. It was a long time coming. Every single time I was in that job, I knew how to do it, very good with numbers, but I was unhappy, and it was becoming more and more toxic the greater I grew on the inside. Yeah. And I remember I already had my massage license and Reiki trained, and everything was shifting in me energetically with the Reiki. And it was February. And I said, I feel like an ending is coming. I gotta stop. So I signed up for to learn traditional Chinese medicine and Cui Na in Beijing in October of
Wow.
2001. I'm like, okay, I'm
That
signing
sounds
up.
fun.
So I put the money down, I signed up, and I said, now I have between like February and October to leave. We finished this huge party in Palm Desert, and the week after, I went into work and my computer wouldn't turn on. And so I looked at my boss. He's like, go talk to the head boss. And they fired me. They were moving my assistant up to my position, and there was no reason for them to fire me. So they offered me a severance package with a big chunk of money. So I didn't sue them, and health insurance for like a year. Now I would
Wow.
not have had that, right, had I just quit, but I gave myself that 8 months, and look what happened. So I
Right.
trusted it. And then a month after I said, I trusted it, my new life started, and I got rid of all my clothes. I got my nose pierced, a tattoo, which back then you weren't allowed in any building if you had those things, right?
Right.
This was 2001. And I never looked back. It was hard, but it
Mhm.
was amazing. It was exactly where I needed to be.
It's so funny that we make these decisions or start thinking we're going to change something. And then if we don't do it, it feels really hard for us to do it. Whether we decide it or not, the universe takes it away in some way, shape, or form. If we're resistant to it and just, holding on to it, even though we know we shouldn't, there's always something that comes up that kind of gives us that like, okay, listen, you're not listening, so we're going to take care of it for you. Happens all the time.
Exactly. It does happen all the time. And, when you've been through that enough, you kind of learn, and this is what I impart when I work with my clients, is that answer that call the first couple times. It's never so much about what we learn. That is part of it, because that evolution will always come. It's really more about taking our energy and using it for the courage to let go of where we've been. Because the evolution is inevitable.
Exactly.
It's just, when will you hear the call to grieve and let go and say, I'm done?
Yeah. I hear that.
Yep.
I hear that. So then you went on your journey. You started this trek of across the country, across the world, to a different learning, different understanding, and expanding yourself. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was something. I even though I was getting ready to leave, it sounds really nice when I say it, but I remember still being in shock, and for years, my, again, South Side Chicago, work hard upbringing, I was in the office by 5:30 a.m. Pacific time for the markets. So if I didn't have like most of my day done by noon, it took me years to unwind that out of my nervous system. And even though I was so excited it happened, I was still shocked and afraid, and like, oh my gosh, talking about it's one thing, but it's happened all of a sudden. But I powered away, and I was married to somebody else at the time. And I just, it was that was kind of wobbly too. We ended up divorcing that year as well, a couple of months later, but I continued to just devour the schooling because I loved it. I had the chance now, and I did class after class after class. And before you know it, I was teaching at the school. And then a couple of months later, my father died. Within weeks of finding out he had cancer, he died. My father that raised me, I was adopted. And then the guy I was married to at the time didn't show up till the funeral. So that was over. Wow. And my whole life that I had known, my conditioning went away. And then 9/11 happened, and we were the first flight out of LA after 9/11. And it was almost like everything in the world was shifting, but I didn't know quite where I was going, but I knew in my heart that it felt right. That's all I had. That's all I had. Everything else was gone. But the minute I stepped into it and gave myself over to it completely, there was grieving, there was purging, but there was so much celebration. I was stepping into quality of life versus quantity. And I lost friends.
Yep.
I lost family, not just like my father dying, but relationships that I would have liked to carry on. They can't, they liked it better when I was, normal or whatever
Yeah,
you want
working
to
on the
call that,
job and having
whatever
that
it was, that
family
corporate.
and all that stuff, right?
And
Yeah.
I just, that wasn't me at all. And being adopted, even, I feel like we have this inherent primal wound that we really want to have acceptance. And so it was even harder, even in the face of, oh my gosh, why do you always have to be different? I'm like, if you only knew how badly I wish I wasn't, but yet here I am. So
I'm so proud of you for taking that step, taking that leap of faith, and just stepping out into what you're, the unknown, but following the feeling of what feels right for you, the feeling of more that kind of showed up for you.
it was more all right. And it was so true. It was almost like my insides were finally able to live outside of my life. And that is such an important part. And the moment I did that, I mean, I met my new husband. We've been together like 20 years now. And the people that I met along the way, they really were able to reflect back to me these inherent gifts that I have. And this was still at a time, nobody, 20 years ago, people are just now getting more comfortable talking about it, but
just right. Exactly.
I found the right people even then, because my compass was beyond me. It wasn't my conditioning. It wasn't what I was told to do by society. It was here. And that brought me everyone and everything I needed to build the life I have today.
I love that. When we let go of these identities of what we should be doing and what society tells us to do, and we step into a different life almost, where it's like you said, and you start attracting the people that are meant for you and that are connected to you, because of it's that law of attraction that we kind of touched on that earlier. And if you want to kind of go back to that point, it's just, this is the answer to the call. You're the magnet and you're pulling these things to you.
That was exactly it. And having the faith to do that, even in the hardship of it, is really, it takes courage and it takes resolve. But once you get a taste of that truth, you're like, oh man, I can't go back. And I see that sometimes with my clients at the 11th hour, and I know this personally, at that 11th hour, you're like, no, because somewhere inside of you on a subconscious level, that the minute you say yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the domino effects. And then what? It's really an exercise, like I said before, of letting go.
Yeah. And I feel that too, because I've had an experience of that as well. Like over the last few months, I've had a lot of change in understanding and awareness that's come through. And it's about the first, like you said, the domino, the first catalyst to that was where I couldn't go and do something with our team. And I literally hit this moment of, I just need to surrender to it. And because of that, so much else has opened up, and the thoughts and ideas after that was just like you said, this domino effect of now that the door is shifted, I was trying to push it in the way that I thought I should, or the way I needed to, but it just continues on this huge momentous journey. All of a sudden, right? Opens the door.
It does. And I love what you're saying, because I feel like that mixed with law of attraction, which I love, but there's a deeper context to law of attraction I'm sure we'll get into momentarily, but you took action. And that is the key there. It's not just what we think. It's not just what we visualize. I have found that, if you build it, they will come, quite literally. Like, you have to be so embodied with your choice, not just here. The mind needs to meet the feet. The mind needs to meet the hands. And when you fully embody that choice and take action, then it comes, not just when we think about it. Although that happens as well. But when I'm talking like when you want to get fully aligned, right? It's taking.
Yeah, exactly. It's that, exactly what you said. That's that full alignment. And that's what we were talking about with spirituality, is like, and the awareness that I've come through is just, when we have these things, when we finally let go of the shoulds and we become more aligned and listen to what's going on and what we're supposed to be on the path to, it's the spirituality. When we start listening to the oneness, the spirit that's traveling through us, we're attached to, connected to, and we start paying attention, it's that alignment, that oneness, when the magic happens.
It does. And I actually have, and I have a podcast as well, but it's with membership. And months ago, maybe I think it was even like last year, a couple of years ago, it was an astrological configuration was happening. And the mantra that came through was called the death of should. And I have so many people that still walk around and love that, where, letting the shoulds die and putting the woulds or the coulds in there instead. But the death of should is our conditioning.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this is good. So what happened next?
Oh yeah. Okay. So, so as I'm on my journey, I remember, working in the lab. Once you get your massage certificate, you have to hands-on people, right? And I was mixing that Western aspect with the Eastern. And so I was in a lab that we were doing Tui Na and meridian work and things like that. And I had these teachers. She's like, Jeannine, what are you doing? Reiki. She's like, no, that's not Reiki. I'm Reiki trained. I'm like, no, it's I think it's Reiki. Like that's last time I checked. And, but she was so cued in to the subtleties of energy. So she was able to understand, even with Reiki, there's different energies depending on who it comes from or how you learn it. She actually left her training where she was a master and went over to my teacher, Jean Ferris, who has since passed away a few years ago, who was more traditional Usui Reiki training. Not that one's better than the other, but it sticks to the old lineage teaching where you just do one, just two, that's it. And if you want to become a master, there's a whole process. So that was the beginning that I understood that there's frequencies of energy. And then I would feel all these different things in my body, depending on how many people I worked with that day. And I had my teachers reflect to me. They're like, oh, that's because you're an empath. This is what you need to do to work on that. And then I would be working on people and I would just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my life. It rocks. I'm in San Diego, just like minding my own beeswax, doing my massage. And I would get visuals of other lifetimes. And it would startle me. And then I would have teachers say, ooh, what's going on with you? And I would have to share with them in total embarrassment. Like, no, I'm not seeing this, but let me just tell you what I saw. I'm like, oh, no, that's something. And so I was finally in a space that these people were able to tell me who I was through my experiences. And so I just kept following the nibbles like little Hansel and Gretel. I'm like, okay,
breadcrumbs,
who I am. I don't know where it's taking me, but I'm going. And then it also answered the call to my own healing. I had a tricky childhood, as I mentioned. And so all of my healing modalities have gone through me first. I truly feel as a healer, what I've come to learn is that you could only take people as deeply as you've gone with yourself. And it's not, again, just something 1, 2, 3. It's have you lived it?
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, 100%. I love that you just, even though it seemed uncomfortable and even though, it wasn't definitely the normal in that point in time, I love that you just stepped into it and like the past lives, like things would show up and you just allowed it to happen, and embarrassed or not, you just allowed it to continue and kept continuing to step into it. Like that is so powerful, just to have that strength and confidence to know, and I'm sure when you look back, you're like, wow, I didn't really think about it that way at that point. You were kind of nervous about it and had different feelings about it, but like the impact that it's had in your life now, this journey, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it has gone really deep. And I love how you said confidence, because when it happened, like you said, I couldn't look back and say I was confident. Maybe I would say a little crazy. That's what I would call it then. Now, however, I might look back and say that was confident. But I feel like, I was, my journey again has been so much of a release and so much of losing things that you get to a point where the external horizon is crumbling or it's no longer there. So you just have this internal horizon to go on. And I feel like because perhaps I started my journey young as an adoptee, you have like this primal wound of just constant grief and then not really fitting in fully in my childhood. So much of it was I already had this internal compass that I followed. But when I followed that and I moved forward, it was a step-by-step thing that it was so true I couldn't deny it. I would just literally, and sometimes I feel, to get deep about it, maybe even splitting hairs, I don't love the word heal. To me, it denotes an end game, and it could be too much on people at first. Like, oh my gosh, I should just heal this and move on. Only if I healed that, if I get the certificate, if I get the graduation, if I get the money, if I get this, then I will be there. And, it's more about alignment. So if you align to your truth in the moment, just in the moment, even if it's a tiny truth, and then the next day, you align to another truth that was built on the one from the day before. Healing is the byproduct. So another thing too is that we're never done. The end game is that there is no end game. That's the end game. There is no end game. And so and I hope that brings relief, because it's a continual waking up every day and saying, did I align to me today in all aspects of my being? And if you could say yes, then you high five it and you celebrate that and you build on it as you go. And that's how I did it. It's just baby steps.
Oh, I love that. I love what you said there, the align with your truth every day. And the healing is the byproduct. This is the same thing. I just did a recording of just like a solo podcast episode, not aired yet, but it's coming, about actually probably by the time this does, it will be. But anyway, this is an opportunity. This whole podcast, the purpose of it is an opportunity for people to find their truth.
Right.
Because people don't know. We're so used to, like you said, the conditioning, the shoulds, all these other things that are there, that we don't even know what our truth is. And I can say that now because I, like you, have gone through the path of understanding and learning and growing and expanding, and have this awareness now that I can now understand what my truth is. And, I talk about it being my superpower of like just being open to receive whatever is put out there. And then whatever hits in the right way or whatever feels right for me is my truth. And like, and this is what you've done in yourself and your journey is doing that. And I love that you said, it's just like this, it's a journey. It's always a journey. There is no end. But the piece you said there about it's just baby steps. Mm-hmm. It's one day at a time. It's never going to be like, oh, I'm healed all and everything is good and I'll be forever great for the rest of my life. Things are still going to come up. Things are going to surface, but it's in that finding your truth and your alignment. That was so good.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing that and with your own experience, because that is so true. And the paradigm shift, that's the invitation here, is to shift our core understanding from running away from our triggers, our sensitivities, instead of running away from them, to run to them. And when I work with my clients, we reposition this. I mean, I have people that come to me that did all the right things. And I'm telling you, like, all the right things. They work at the companies that we would know and at the schools that were like, woohoo, and they have lost their soul. And so, us as parents guiding the children and even the children themselves, it's my kids are life learned, and not that that's for everybody, but they are not conditioned in any way. They will find their journey, and we will offer them. We love learning, but not in this way that they are only given certain ways to measure themselves. They measure themselves.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that.
And so even whether they're children or adults, this is where I love to focus. And I do that by helping people to realign with the big four. And that's what I call the big four, is those four aspects of ourselves.
Oh, that's so good. I love what you're doing. I love what you're creating here. And you mentioned earlier that you're writing a book.
I am. I'm writing a book, and it's in the editing process now, and it's called Dark Matters. And so what that's about is how I love to do my work. You know, I love the law of attraction, been following that for years, but I always felt like it was going somewhere where it was missing a key component for our own sanity when we use it, and for our own truth as well. And so in law of attraction, we draw to us that which we are, right? Or what we visualize, what we think. But, you know, the light side of the moon and the dark side of the moon are both the moon. And so if we're just looking at the light, what about the other stuff? And so dark matters, and it will show up. And if you can't manifest and you're trying, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just there's other parts of us that want to be witnessed, that need to be integrated and seen. And so the fundamental principles of my work is focusing around, I go to the dark first. I go there. I'm like, let's go there before it comes to get us, because it's going to come. That's the point of life. So we go there through this life work and past life work, pull it up, use them as tools. And I hope to share that in my book on how other people could work with that as well.
I love that, because it's something else I'm feeling, excuse me, really called to help with. Is not, I want to come back and touch on the afterlife, or the past life, sorry. But is the same thing, is that there's this, we can't resist the healing. We can't resist the, like you said, looking to the light. Usually when we get stuck, and this is what I've now come to understand in the last month in my own journey, like you said, is that we can't continue to move forward sometimes, and we feel stuck. But the stuck is because there's something there that we need to work through, understand, heal, nourish within ourselves, the dark, the shadow work, if you will. Like, we need to kind of go through that, like you said, face it, in order to continue to move forward. And not that we can't still move forward, but we're just going to keep running up against something, and we keep going, shaking our heads like, what is going on? Like I said, we can't manifest, we can't bring things to us, and we're thinking we're wrong, or we're doing it wrong, or there's something wrong with us. And we start creating all these ideas and stories in our head, but it's letting go of those stories and just accepting there's something else that needs to be figured out here, and just allow yourself the space to do that. So that's what I know I'm kind of being called to too. So I love this conversation so much. Can you just kind of just touch back? You talked a little bit about it as well before, just like the past life, the work you do there.
Sure. So, immediately it's almost like one of my superpowers, for sure.
Yeah, I love it.
Like that shocking moment where I would put my hands on people. I'm like, what am I seeing? And I would take my hands off, and it's like, oh, now what do I do with this? But, I learned through the years in my own training that we all have these past lives, and I don't deal necessarily with just the basic past lives. And it is fun to see them for what they are, right? Like, oh, I was that person in another life. But particularly in my mentoring, I have a program called Into the Mystic, and I go into each chakra that we have, and every chakra has a theme, right? Mm-hmm. First chakra is identity, your stability, your foundation. Second chakra is that sexuality, our creative potency. Third is our alignment, our truth, so on and so forth. So I go into every chakra, and I intend for the shamanic core wound, is what I call it. Mm-hmm. And so I get the name of who you were, the place, and the story where it really activated your trauma, where your consciousness was just budding, we're all unconscious. That's part of it too, right? But this is the point where you were just leaning over to the other way, and you really felt it, and your soul cried out, what's going on? And it kind of fractured in a gazillion pieces. So I go there and I call it home. I tell it it's over, safe, free, and loved. And then I go through that with my client when they're in meditation. And then we work with those lives. I have them work with them today, not in addition to their wounding, but to organize it. And so then when they see the same patterning showing up, they're like, oh, I totally know which life that was. And they could place it over there. And so what that does is that bears witness to a wound that couldn't be seen, and it creates space in the individual to blossom for who they are today, because they are the medicine. They're the cry that the context of their life wanted, their soul wanted, they are that. And so they can then show up more fully and be the medicine for those other lifetimes as well.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that so much. This has been so good, Jeannine. Could you just tell us like this? We could probably talk for hours. This is going to be so good. And you're going to come back here and we're going to talk some more.
I would love that. I would love that.
But I would love for you, like if people are kind of resonating with your story, want to get some more information about your book when it comes out, want to connect with you in some way, how can people best connect with you? JeannineKim.com.
And I just started Instagram like a month or two ago. So
woohoo!
I'm fairly new, so forgive me if I'm not that good at it yet. But the mystic.Jeannine Kim, I am there as well.
Oh, fabulous. Well, this has been so good. And like, there's so much good stuff that you've shared here of where, just allowing yourself to have this beautiful journey that's taking you to where you are today, following the breadcrumbs, taking these steps and actions, like you said, taking the action steps as well, not just kind of hesitating and thinking about it and considering it. You took action on it and your life has unfolded in such a beautiful way. And I know you've, changed in so many ways and you're in this beautiful stage now. What would you say would be your biggest, if you could give your best advice or whatever, or takeaway to people, what would that be from your journey?
Don't be afraid of empty. And trust yourself completely. Trust yourself and trust empty.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I feel that one. That was another one that was huge for me. I did a self-Reiki session once and it was like when I just started this journey. And that was one of the biggest things that came through to me was trust. It was like, it was very emotional. It was I wasn't trusting myself and I wasn't true to myself. Anyway, there's a whole other conversation there I won't get into, but
well, and that is the feminine. And so we could deep dive this, but I'll say really quickly, when we say that the feminine is rising, I don't see it as the feminine rising out there and what they need to do out there. I see it in here. Your feminine is your physical and your emotional. So where are you with your physical and your emotional body? Do you not let it rise? Do you not let it show up in your world? Do you not love it every day? When you do, it'll start reflecting out there. So you want to love the feminine, go here first. And that's for any gender.
Yeah, 100%. I know we'll talk about the male and masculine and feminine energies as well, but anyway, we will come back to that. We'll pocket that one or pause that one. We'll come back to that one for later.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on, for sharing your heart, your story, your journey, and allowing people to see parts of you and to see where that could reflect in them, in their journey. And like we talked about, it's not about the fact that this isn't crazy. There's so much to this and it's just the beginning. There's so much coming for this world and this consciousness and what's happening right now and this awakening. And I'm just so happy to have this conversation with you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Alana. Thank you for having the platform. That was courageous. And I love being here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk again. Otherwise, have a beautiful day. Thank you all for joining us today and have a beautiful day. We'll talk to you soon. Love you all. Bye.
Thank you, beautiful souls, for joining us today on That Feeling of More podcast with your host, Alana Green. We'd love to invite you to connect with Alana and our guests at lifeisajourneycoaching.com. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you can join us on our next journey of awakening.